In 2011, Skype was so dominant that people didn't say, "Video call me." They said, "Skype me." The company had 663 million registered users, was worth $8.5 billion to Microsoft, and had become a verb in the English language. But just 14 years later, in May 2025, Microsoft shut Skype down completely. The app that invented modern video calling was erased from existence, its website now redirecting to Microsoft Teams, a platform that didn't even exist when Skype was at its peak. How does the pioneer of an entire industry become so irrelevant that its own owner kills it? In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how Skype went from revolutionary to obsolete. You'll see how they built an empire on free international calls, why Microsoft paid nearly $9 billion for them, and the specific moment when everything started to unravel. And if you stick around to the end, I'll show you the empty building in Estonia where Skype's story began, and reveal what's there now. What replaced it will tell you everything about why Skype failed. Let's go back to 2003. The internet was still young. Making an international phone call cost a fortune, sometimes several dollars per minute. Telecom companies had a stranglehold on communication, and they were charging outrageous rates because they could. Two entrepreneurs, Nicholas Zenstrom and Janice Fries, saw an opportunity. They had just created Kazaa, the music-sharing service, and they understood peer-to-peer technology better than almost anyone. They asked a simple question: if we can send music files directly between computers, why can't we send voice? They partnered with Estonian developers to build something radical. Instead of routing calls through expensive telecom infrastructure, their system would route calls directly between users' computers. No middleman. No server farms. Just pure peer-to-peer magic. They called it Sky Peer-to-Peer, later shortened to Skype. Here's why the timing was perfect. Broadband internet was just becoming common in homes. People were hungry for ways to stay connected globally without bankruptcies-level phone bills. Traditional phone companies were seen as greedy monopolies, and there was genuine cultural excitement about disrupting them. Skype launched in August 2003, and within 2 years, it had 54 million users worldwide. Think about that. No social media marketing. No app stores. Just word of mouth spreading like wildfire because the product solved a real, painful problem. The key was this: Skype made international calls virtually free. A call from New York to Mumbai that would cost $50 on a landline? Free on Skype. This wasn't a slight improvement. It was a 100% cost reduction. Competitors couldn't match this because they were using traditional VoIP architecture, which required expensive server infrastructure. Skype's peer-to-peer model meant their costs barely increased as they added users. Every new user actually made the network stronger. They did the opposite of everyone else. While telecom companies were protecting their high-margin international calling business, Skype was giving it away for free. And people loved them for it. Skype's growth engine was unlike anything the communication industry had seen. The peer-to-peer architecture meant they could scale to millions of users without proportionally increasing costs. Traditional phone companies needed physical infrastructure, cables, switching stations, satellites. Skype needed bandwidth, which users provided themselves. But the real genius was the business model layered on top. While user-to-user calls were free, Skype charged small fees for calls to landlines and mobile phones. It was just pennies per minute, but with millions of users, those pennies added up fast. They also added video calling after launch, revolutionary for 2003. Suddenly, you could see your family overseas. For free. The emotional impact was enormous. Grandparents could watch their grandchildren grow up in real time. Long-distance relationships became sustainable. Business meetings happened face-to-face without travel. Skype worked on PCs, Macs, and as smartphones emerged, mobile devices too. They supported file sharing, instant messaging, group calls, call forwarding, and voicemail. It was becoming a complete communication platform. The quality was exceptional. Early users remember that Skype calls often sounded better than traditional phone lines. There was a reason the classic Skype ringtone became iconic. People heard it constantly. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel. This allowed them to grow faster than anyone thought possible. By 2005, just 2 years after launch, eBay saw this rocket ship and paid $2.6 billion to acquire them. Under Microsoft's ownership starting in 2011, Skype reached heights that seemed unassailable. The $8.5 billion acquisition was one of Microsoft's largest ever. It signaled that Skype wasn't just a communication tool. It was critical infrastructure for the future of work and personal connection. Microsoft integrated Skype everywhere. Windows, built-in, Xbox, native support, Outlook, seamlessly connected. The company was pushing Skype into every corner of their ecosystem. At its peak, Skype had over 300 million connected users. 300 million people, simultaneously, using one communication platform. The cultural validation was complete. Skype had become a verb used in everyday language around the world. Skype for Business was launched to capture the corporate market. Microsoft saw a future where Skype would be the communication backbone for enterprises globally. Revenue was strong. Brand awareness was near 100% in developed markets. Media coverage portrayed Skype as the definitive winner in video calling. They had pioneered the category and dominated it for nearly a decade. Articles talked about Skype's unstoppable momentum. In 2011, if you had asked tech analysts who would own video calling in 2025, almost every single one would have said Skype. It looked impossible for them to lose, but there was something lurking beneath the success, something that would prove fatal. Skype's entire competitive advantage was built on peer-to-peer architecture. And in 2012, Microsoft made a quiet decision. They replaced that architecture with centralized supernodes managed by Microsoft. By 2017, Skype had moved entirely to Azure-based servers. On paper, this made sense. Centralized servers meant better control, easier updates, more reliable connections. But it eliminated the very thing that made Skype special. Suddenly, Skype was just another VoIP service. The cost advantage disappeared. The network effect that made each new user valuable? Gone. Skype now had to compete on features and user experience, not on revolutionary technology. This worked for a while. But it planted the seeds of something dangerous. Skype was no longer defensible through technology. Anyone with servers and decent software could now compete directly. And unlike Skype, which had been designed for desktop computers in 2003, new competitors were being built from scratch for smartphones and the cloud. They had no legacy code, no old architecture to maintain. They could move fast. The barrier to entry in video calling had suddenly dropped to nearly zero. The first problem came from mobile. Skype had been designed when most internet users sat at desktop computers. But by 2010, smartphones were taking over, and Skype's mobile apps felt clunky and outdated compared to native mobile experiences. WhatsApp launched mobile messaging in 2009, and by 2015, they added voice and video calling. For hundreds of millions of users, especially younger ones, WhatsApp became their default. It was mobile-first, lightweight, and worked seamlessly with their phone contacts. Then came FaceTime in 2010. Apple built video calling directly into iOS. For iPhone users, there was zero friction. No app to download, no account to create, just tap and call. Skype's requirement to create an account and download software suddenly felt like unnecessary barriers. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel. But Skype could have weathered these competitors. The real damage came from changing user behavior. Communication was fragmenting. People didn't want one app for video calls. They wanted integrated platforms. Slack launched in 2013 and conquered workplace messaging. Google launched Hangouts, later Meet. Discord captured gaming communities. Each platform had video calling built in, and users preferred staying within one ecosystem rather than switching to Skype. Skype's reputation began taking hits. Frequent redesigns frustrated loyal users. The 2017 redesign added Snapchat-style features that nobody asked for. Many users actually revolted online. The interface became cluttered. Performance issues emerged. Some users reported laggy video calls and high data usage. Privacy concerns grew. Spam calls and messages became common on Skype. Integration with other services was limited, particularly with Google's ecosystem, which millions relied on. Some countries even banned Skype, citing security concerns. Meanwhile, Microsoft was making a strategic calculation. In 2017, they launched Microsoft Teams, a new platform designed specifically for workplace collaboration. Teams had video calling, but also calendars, file sharing, project management, and deep office integration. The market was clear. Businesses wanted comprehensive collaboration tools, not just video calling. Teams was purpose-built for this. Skype was not. Microsoft began encouraging Skype users to migrate to Teams. Updates to Skype slowed down. Development resources shifted. The company's flagship communication product was no longer Skype. It was Teams. Then the metrics started declining. In 2020, Skype had about 40 million daily users. Respectable but far from dominant. By 2023, that number dropped to 36 million. By 2025, monthly users had fallen to just 23 million. Microsoft Teams, meanwhile, exploded to over 280 million users. Zoom, which barely existed in 2013, surged past Skype entirely. The final blow came from Zoom's rise during the 2020 pandemic. When the world suddenly needed video calling for work, school, and social connection, they didn't choose Skype. They chose Zoom. But Zoom had something Skype never prioritized: simplicity at scale. You could join a Zoom meeting without creating an account. Just click a link. Meetings could host hundreds of people smoothly. The interface was clean and intuitive. Screen sharing worked flawlessly. Skype had been designed for one-to-one calls between friends and family. Zoom was designed for groups and meetings. When the market shifted to group video, Skype couldn't adapt fast enough. By 2022, Skype's market share had shrunk to single digits. The brand that invented the category had become an afterthought. The trigger event wasn't a single moment. It was a slow-motion realization inside Microsoft. The pandemic in 2020 should have been Skype's moment to shine. Global lockdowns forced everyone online. Video calling went from nice to have to essential overnight. Microsoft had the perfect product already built. But users chose Zoom instead. By massive margins. Schools used Zoom. Companies used Zoom or Teams. Even families started using Zoom for virtual gatherings. Microsoft watched Zoom's valuation skyrocket while Skype stagnated. The message was unmistakable. The market had moved on. Internally, Microsoft faced a strategic dilemma. They were pouring resources into Teams, which was succeeding beyond projections. Continuing to develop Skype meant maintaining parallel platforms that essentially competed with each other. The business case was clear. Teams was winning enterprise customers, the most valuable segment. Skype's remaining user base was largely personal users, lower revenue, higher support costs, declining engagement. Microsoft had bought Skype for $8.5 billion, and the difficult truth was emerging. It might have been a mistake. Not because Skype wasn't valuable in 2011, it absolutely was. But because the market had fundamentally changed, and Microsoft's own product strategy had evolved past Skype's original purpose. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel. The nail in the coffin came from usage data. Microsoft could see that even Skype's loyal users were gradually switching to alternatives. Retention was dropping. New user acquisition had essentially stopped. Young people didn't even know what Skype was. There was no single dramatic moment. Just the steady accumulation of data showing that Skype's relevance was approaching zero. Oh, they're done. On February 28, 2025, Microsoft made the announcement. Skype would be retired. After 22 years of operation, the service would shut down on May 5, 2025. The reaction was swift. Longtime users expressed nostalgia and sadness. Media outlets published retrospectives about Skype's impact on communication. But notably, there was no massive outcry. No campaign to save it. The truth was, most people had already moved on. Microsoft made the transition as smooth as possible. Skype users could log into Teams using the same credentials. Their contacts would transfer. They were encouraged to export their data before final deletion, scheduled for January 2026. The Skype website now redirects to Microsoft Teams. The apps were removed from app stores. A platform that once had 663 million registered users simply ceased to exist. The shutdown was calm, analytical, almost corporate. There was no scandal, no dramatic collapse. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the market had rendered Skype obsolete. What's striking is how quickly a company can go from category-defining to irrelevant. Skype wasn't killed by a competitor, it was killed by market evolution. Video calling didn't disappear, it just became a commodity feature built into dozens of other platforms. Remember that building I mentioned at the beginning? The place in Estonia where Skype was born in 2003? Today, it houses offices for Bolt, the ride-sharing and delivery app. The building looks the same from the outside, but inside, it's full of young developers working on a completely different platform that's now dominating Baltic markets. The symbolism is perfect. Where Skype once revolutionized communication, There's now a company that's revolutionizing transportation. The building moved on. The city moved on. The world moved on. And that's the entire story of Skype in one image. Revolutionary companies don't stay revolutionary forever. The market doesn't wait. New problems emerge. New solutions arise. And if you can't evolve, someone else will take your place. What replaced Skype wasn't another video calling app. It was dozens of them, integrated into platforms people already used for other reasons. Video calling stopped being a destination and became a feature. The biggest lesson here is this: pioneering a category doesn't guarantee owning it forever. Skype did everything right in the beginning. They solved a real problem with innovative technology. They scaled quickly. They achieved cultural dominance. They were acquired for billions by one of the world's most powerful companies. But they made one critical mistake. They stopped being necessary. When Skype was the only way to make free video calls, people needed Skype. But when video calling became available everywhere, in WhatsApp, FaceTime, Zoom, Teams, Meet, Discord, and dozens of other apps, people no longer needed a separate platform. The lesson isn't about better features or smarter strategy. It's about market evolution. Categories mature, commoditize, and fragment. Being first gives you an advantage, but staying relevant requires constant reinvention. Microsoft's mistake wasn't buying Skype. It was trying to preserve it as a standalone product when the market had moved toward integrated platforms. They eventually learned this lesson with Teams, but by then, Skype was already dying. So here's my question for you. Could Microsoft have saved Skype, or was this inevitable? Should they have evolved Skype into what Teams became? Should they have positioned it differently against mobile-first competitors? Or was the fundamental problem that video calling simply couldn't sustain a dedicated platform once smartphones made everything integrated? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you were a Skype user back in the day, tell us your favorite memory of the platform. Let's give it a proper send-off. Because here's the thing, even though Skype is gone, its legacy influenced every modern video calling service. The idea that you could see and talk to anyone, anywhere, for free? That was Skype's gift to the world. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel.